Hello and welcome to the fourth episode of Clojure Tip of the Day screencast. In the next two episodes, I will briefly show you how to use all of 7 Clojure threading macros. Make sure to also check excellent Clojure threading macros guide. Let's start by evaluating the data that we will use in our examples. Threading macros are generally useful for transforming deeply nested functions call into a linear flow of functions call. In our first example, we can easily see how nested function calls can become messy and hard to reason about. Compare this to the thread first macro version, where the flow is much more easier to follow. The thread first macro simply takes the data structure passed as the first argument and inject this data structure into the first position for the subsequent function calls, then evaluate this function call and inserts the result of this SOH in as the first argument of subsequent update. Finally, this update is evaluated and the result is inserted into the first position of final update function call. Let's use site debugger to quickly visualize the execution flow. First, we have our person data structure, which is passed to SOH in. The result is a person with salary 60,000. Then we pass this result into the update function. The age is incremented, and finally, the one new child is added. Let's do this with thread first version. We have our person, then person is passed argument to SOH in. That result is inserted into the first position of update function call. That result is again inserted into the final update call, and we get our final result. Okay, thread first macro can also be used to quickly get a value in nested map. It's also nil safe, so we just get nil if an intermediate key doesn't exist or is nil. And thread first macro can also be used for Java methods. So in this example, we just call substring on person's name, and then we make it lowercase. In some cases, we need to use function which expects collection as the last argument. If we try to use thread first macro with such functions, we just get exception. In this case, filter doesn't know how to create sequence from anonymous function here. The solution is simple, just use thread last macro, which inserts argument in the last position. So if we use site debugger, you can see that person, children's are filtered one by one, and the final result is passed to map function. There can be more complicated cases which are covered by thread as macro. This is useful when you need to use your data structure both with functions that expect data structure in the first position and in the last position, or anywhere in the middle. So thread as macro is simply used by giving it a placeholder. The common one is $sign, and then using this placeholder in each function call to explicitly say where the result of previous function should be inserted. So if we use site debugger, we see that initial person is inserted here. The result of update is inserted here. get children, the result is not here, then we filter, and finally we give it the map and retrieve the names. Okay, these were the first 3 threading macros. In the next episode I will show you how to use the remaining 4 threading macros. Thanks for watching and stay tuned for the next episode.